This is Allow Me to Be Frank, brought to you by the great podcast you can hear weekly on iTunes and SoundCloud. Besides our weekly podcast, you can go back and listen to our archives at any time. We've been doing this over a year now, and we've got a number of great shows. We did an episode last year for Thanksgiving. We've done Star Wars specials with Robbie Fox. I mean, what are you going to do? It's great. We've had a number of guests from Barstool Sports. We've had Paul LaDuca. I mean, it's just total entertainment. And plus, I'm doing my I did a number of shows with Stu Feiner where we got my start to my weight loss journey on track, which is now continuing, going to LA Fitness regularly to spend an hour or so in the pool. I mean, that's the best I could do right now, but that's where we're at. So check it out at iTunes and SoundCloud, and I promise you, you'll have a good time. ALCS began on Saturday night, and it was no sale for the Red Sox as they lost at home 7-2. They had their top pitcher on the mound, Sale, and you know, he wasn't awful, but he wasn't good. He didn't last long. Was very wild to a lot of balls. He only allowed one hit, but that one hit scored 2 runs and gave Houston an early 2-0 lead. Red Sox did battle back, but shoddy fielding and late power against the weaker end of the Red Sox bullpen ended up being the difference. This is a game that Alex Cora absolutely, totally threw into the dumpster. I mean, you know, notwithstanding his disaster, or near disaster in Game 4 in the Bronx, how does Craig Kimbrell not out there trying to preserve a 1-run deficit in the 9th inning? I think that's a very big mistake by Cora. And then the Astros got home runs by Reddick and Yuri Gurriel, scoring 4 runs in the 9th to blow the game open as they won 7-2. And now it's up to David 0-9 in the postseason price to salvage a game at home. Not looking too good, I dare say, for Boston. Meanwhile, the Brewers have been trying to bullpen again, and Jeffers, you know, he's been a good reliever, but he's not had a good postseason. He's the one that allowed the 2 runs against Colorado, the only 2 runs they allowed in the division series. He allowed a bunch of runs in Game 1, and then finally, it was like the Brewers were playing that game Minesweeper. Beep! And the bomb almost blows up, but you're 1 away, and then 1 away, and then finally, boom! Justin Turner, 2-run homer. Dodgers win 4-3, and now go back to LA with the split they desired. And the Brewers bullpen, which is supposed to be their strength, has not been. It's been hit around pretty much by the Dodgers, and that's not a good sign. I mean, they gotta take the day off, take their lumps. They'll have Josh Hader available for Game 3, and Josh Hader was brilliant on Friday, so they just gotta hope that Hader helps them pull out a couple games in LA. Otherwise, they could be in trouble. This was a bad loss. This is a bad loss. They had a 3-0 lead, and the bullpen just couldn't get it done. And Curtis Granderson, 8th inning, he came up as a pinch hitter, and he just missed being the hero. I mean, deep part of the ballpark, deep on the warning track, but it was caught. Oh, that would have been so nice to see Curtis Granderson get a win. Meanwhile, the other former Met, Justin Turner, how did this guy become this good? How? Can you answer this to me? How? When he was on the Mets, he was no better than Ty Kelly or Luis Guillorme. The only thing I remember, most memorable thing about Justin Turner was his strange choices of walk-up music. I mean, he's come up with Justin Bieber's Baby and that Kylie Rae Jessep song, what was that? Call Me Maybe? I mean, jeez. He was not, he didn't look like, a gnome at the time. He was clean shaven, redhead, nothing distinguishable. Nothing about him told you this guy was going to be good one day. Oh. Nothing. Oh. College football. College football Saturdays. Every year there's one Saturday, at least, where it's just a horror show for the top 10. Saturday was one of those days. Notre Dame almost was on that list. I mean, Ian Book was not good. He was off target. His passes were not crisp. And Pitt came out with a great game plan, took the first drive and scored, taking 10 minutes off the clock. And Notre Dame was playing catch-up the whole way after that. Fortunately, the Notre Dame defense did not allow Pitt to do that again. The only points Pitt scored the rest of the way was courtesy of a kickoff return to begin the second half. Meanwhile, Notre Dame fought back, and got the win 19-14, and they're definitely going to rise in the rankings now. They're now officially going to be in the top 4. That's because number 2 Georgia, last year's runner-up, went into LSU, and as LSU always likes to do when LSU's at the top of their game, last week they lost that road game in the Swamp. Now they're back home, and they just throttled. They just stamped. Jake Fromm was never a factor in the game, and it was just all Tigers all day long. Had a 16-0 lead at the half. Never looked back. 36-16. Of course, number 1 Alabama. They never lose. They jumped all over Mizzou, 39-10. Ohio State, of course, they won still. They beat Minnesota 30-14. Clemson was off, but all besides number 2 Georgia loss, we had number 6 West Virginia going down. As Iowa State, a giant killer. Like Pitt. Pitt's a giant killer. Pitt might go 5-7, but they'll find out one way to win a game against a top-ranked team. They did it in 2016. They beat Clemson, and then Clemson, they still won a national title despite that loss. Last year, they beat Miami when they were still undefeated, day after Thanksgiving, and Miami never recovered from that loss. But Notre Dame survived today, fortunately. And Iowa State's another one of those giant killers. Last year, they were the only team to beat Oklahoma. And this year, they did it to West Virginia. Will Greer didn't have that big a game. Never got going as Iowa State won 30-14 in Ames. Meanwhile, it was Oregon in a big battle for the Pac-12 North Division, beating Washington 30-27 in overtime. I mean, the Huskies have the more talented team, but this game was a heavyweight fight. I mean, back and forth. And eventually it was Oregon escaping with a win. Penn State, last year, when they lost their first game to Ohio State, had a hangover next week. This year, when they lost to Ohio State, they had a hangover the next week, losing at home to Michigan State, 21-17. Texas, coming off their big win in Oklahoma, almost had that letdown. Left scoreless in the second half, but held off Baylor 23-17. Central Florida, keeping the nation's longest winning streak alive. They're going to raise in the rankings. They're now a serious player for the playoff. Last year they declared themselves national championship after winning after finishing undefeated, but of course they were nowhere near the top 4. But now after surviving a scare in Memphis, winning 31-30, don't sleep on the Golden Knights. It was Michigan just blowing open the game late, beating up on Wisconsin 38-13. I tell you, Wisconsin represents everything about the Western Division in the Big Ten. I mean, you got the powerhouse teams, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State. They're legitimate title contenders. Wisconsin, yeah, they're good against the rest of their division. They're good at beating the Iowas and Nebraskas. But when it comes to going up against the big boys, they get beat down every time. And it was hail to the victors, Michigan 38-13. Meanwhile, Florida continues their resurgence, rallying from a 10-point deficit to beat Vanderbilt 37-27. Miami lost. Upset by Virginia 16-13 as their offense remains stuck in the mud. Colorado came in this week 5-0, but only was ranked number 19. The reason why? The voters know a fraud when they see one, and boy, were they exposed as frauds. USC beat them badly, 31-20. Game wasn't even as close as the score would indicate. Buffalo scored 13 points in the fourth quarter. They're now 0-13 lifetime against the Trojans, is Colorado. So USC is now firmly in control of the South Division in the Pac-12. And speaking about the Pac-12, you want to talk about a mediocre conference? That's mediocre. That conference is so mediocre, they might as well call that the middle of the Pac-12. Because all 12 teams are in the middle of the pack. No one great. No one's there a true contender for the national championship. Forget about it. Nobody in the Pac-12 deserves to be anywhere near the Final Four this year. Have fun in the Rose Bowl. It was Tennessee 30-24 over Auburn. Yes, you heard that right. Auburn continues their slide. I mean, they have been reeling since their loss to LSU. This is going to knock them out of the poll as Tennessee wins their first game in the SEC in 2 years. It was Texas A&M in a close one over South Carolina. In other ACC action, it was Duke doubling up Georgia Tech 28-14. Boston College beating up Louisville team. Clearly, it's a rebuild year for the Cardinal, 38-20. Virginia Tech rebounding from a tough loss against Notre Dame, beating North Carolina 22-19. In Big 12 action, we saw Kansas State beating Oklahoma State 31-12. Wildcats had been off to a bad start, 2-4, but this will get them somewhat on track as Okie State is now 1-3 in conference play. The Big Ten Conference saw Rutgers. Final score, Maryland 34-7 over the Scarlet Knights. Rutgers now 0-4 in Big Ten play, 1-6 overall. And the 7 points they scored was in garbage time. That's all Rutgers can score in is garbage time because they are garbage. They are the dumpster fire. They should stop being the Scarlet Knights. They should become the Rutgers Knight dumpster fire. Speaking of dumpster fire, oh, poor Nebraska. Boy, the Cornhuskers have you fallen. Losing today to Northwestern overtime 34-31, blowing a 2-touchdown lead. Man. Where have you gone? Tom Osborne. Husker Nation turns its eyes to you. It was Iowa 42-16 over Indiana. And Purdue stomping Illinois 46-7. Yes, that's right. Because the only Big Ten team that Illinois could beat is Rutgers. Yeah. God, could you imagine if they were called New Jersey State? Everyone in New Jersey would have to move out of embarrassment. I mean, the entire state of New Jersey should throw a paper bag over its head that Rutgers is at State University because they are an absolute embarrassment. Oh, boy, Rutgers. On Friday night in the Big 12, Pac-12 play, the middle of the Pac-12, it was Utah beating Arizona 42-10. And today it was UCLA getting their first win of the year, beating Cal 37-7. The Bears are now 0-3 in conference play, making the whole conference look even more of a dumpster fire. In the Mountain West, the underrated conference, it was Boise State surviving a scare in Reno, 31-27. While BYU slammed Hawaii, 49-23. Fresno State beat up Wyoming, 27-3. Utah State, 59-28 winners over UNLV. Utah State's having a good year. Colorado State edged New Mexico 20-18. And Army stomping the winless San Jose State Spartans 52-3. SEC. It was Ole Miss keeping Arkansas buried with a 37-33 win, scoring 13 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. Saturday night has always been a night for hockey. And the Vegas Golden Knights had their best game of the year, as Marc-Andre had a big shutout today as they went into Philadelphia and blanked the Flyers 1-0. It was the Oilers 2-1 winners over the Rangers. The Senators clobbered the Kings 5-1. It was the Bruins trampling the Red Wings 8-2. In overtime, it was the Hurricanes 5-4 winners over the Minnesota Wild. Le Canadien won a 4-3 shootout over the Penguins. The Lightning struck 8 times and beat the Columbus 8-2. It was Vancouver 3-2 winners over the Florida Panthers. The Predators hunted down the Islanders 5-2. The Maple Leafs beat the Capitals 4-2. It was the Stars 5-3 winners over the Ducks. The Blackhawks, off to a strong start, beat the St. Louis Blues in overtime 4-3. It was the Buffalo Sabres 3-0 winners over the Arizona Coyotes. And the Calgary Flames beat the Avalanche in overtime on a goal by Johnny Gaudreau 3-2. Our 3 stars of the night are Justin Turner of the Dodgers, Marc-Andre Fleury of the Golden Knights with his 26-save shutout against the Flyers, and Dwayne Haskins, who passed for 412 yards with 3 touchdowns as Ohio State beat Minnesota. Today's birthday shout-out goes to the former Yankee manager who last year at this time had them almost going to the World Series, but they fired him because he wouldn't be Brian Cashman's puppet. Well, the Yankees didn't go to the ALCS this year, and Joe Girardi turned 54 today, and he is still looking to find a new job. And it was 40 years ago today at Market Square Arena in Indianapolis that a 17-year-old stepped onto the ice for the WHA's Indianapolis Racers. His name was Wayne Gretzky. Yes, Wayne Gretzky played his first professional NHL game, or professional level Major League sport game. He played for the WHA at the time 40 years ago today. Check out the story at Barstool Sports and Sports Encyclopedia where sports history lives. And don't forget, Allow Me to Be Frank on SoundCloud and iTunes. Good day.